In this video, I'm going to show you how to make an organic cotton cloth tampon. Once you've watched this video, you should be able to make your own tampons, which you can use and dispose of, or you can reuse them. I'm going to get started with the materials that you need, and I have them laid out right here. Okay, so the first thing you need is your fabric completely washed and dried, and I'll talk more about that. A scale, it can be a digital scale or a manual scale as long as it measures grams. A calculator. A pair of scissors that you can use to cut fabric, a bowl of water, and a pen and paper for your notes. Okay, some information about fabric. You want to get a natural, undyed, unbleached, organic cotton. Now, there are other types of natural fibers, but organic cotton is generally the best thing to use for this. Also, you want to make sure that you get the right kind of weave in the fabric for this application to work. So, what you're going to look for is a knit weave. I have a picture that I'll show you the difference between a knit weave and a regular weave. To the left is a picture of a woven material, and that's going to be the type of weave that you see in napkins and sheets and your regular clothing. A knit weave is just going to be one string woven together in a loop, and this holds together much better than a woven weave. And this is the kind of fabric that you want to get, a knit. So the last thing that you want to look for in your organic cotton fabric is a fleece texture. Fleecing something means that the fabric fibers have been pulled up and then sheared. It gives the fabric a really soft and fluffy texture. It also makes the fabric very absorbent. Don't buy polyester fleece because it's very common, but that's made with synthetic fibers. You don't want anything that's been bleached. You don't want anything with dyes in it. So just stick to an all-natural, unbleached, undyed fabric. Once you've got your fabric, then you need to prepare it before you cut out your patterns. The way that you prepare your fabric is you wash and dry it 3 times to pre-shrink it completely. I generally use something like a bath soap, which I grate on a very small grater, and baking soda for this process. It allows the fibers to sort of stretch out and move around, and then when you dry it, they pull back into their final form. If you want to make sure that you know it's completely pre-shrunk, you can measure it before you wash it and then measure it after it's been completely dried. And when it stops shrinking, then you know it's completely pre-shrunk. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to cut out your pattern. A couple of things to remember before you cut out your pattern is that you want the weave of the fabric to be in a horizontal line. You're going to lay your pattern across it. I'm going to show you a picture of a pattern and you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, here's a couple of the pattern designs. Now, for a smaller size tampon, these are 2 different shapes, but they're actually of a similar absorbency, just different shape. And depending on what your body is like and what style of tampon you prefer, you can cut it as to how you may like it. Now, as you get into a larger size tampon, what you're going to do is you're going to cut a larger rectangle, but then you're also going to cut up for your string so that you could then fold this part up to create more layers for absorbency. Now, you want to keep in mind that your tail, or the string part here, should be at least 5 inches beyond the bottom of the tampon. Now, for here, the bottom of the tampon would be up where you fold it, so you're going to have 5 inches from here to where you're going to fold it. Okay, so when you're getting ready to cut out your pattern, I've got the fabric laid out here, and you want to make sure that you have your stripe. You're going to see the lines in the fabric, and you want to make sure that they're going horizontally. The way that you cut your pattern out is you start on the side that's rolled up. Your fabric is going to do that after you wash it and dry it, and you can see that this side's naturally rolling in and this side is not. Okay, so you're going to start with a shape that you think you might like, and you start at the bottom and you cut going across the horizontal lines of the weave of the fabric. Cut yourself a tail about 5 inches. You can measure it if you like, but you don't have to. And just go up about as far as you think you're going to need. And then go out to form the top. Go out about as far as you think you're going to need. Okay. So this is the way that it's going to look. And then what you want to do is you want to take the string that you've cut and you want to pull it down and pull it hard. It'll start to give a little, but it won't come out. If it comes out, you may have cut it a little bit too thin, in which case just cut your next ones a little bit thicker. But the strings will be very strong. Okay, and so there it is. That's what that one's going to look like. The string's a little long, so I'll just trim it down. Okay, so now that you've got your tampon cut out, the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to test it for absorbency. All tampons carry the risk for toxic shock syndrome, and toxic shock syndrome is related to wearing tampons for too long or tampons that are too absorbent for your level of flow. This is why you see different levels of tampon, and they're supposed to be the same from brand to brand. So you see things like Super, Super Plus, Regular. So what you're going to do with this is you're going to test it and see what level it falls within, so that you know what time in your cycle is the right time to use this tampon. Turn your scale on. Wait for it to adjust to 0 and tear out. If you're using a manual scale, you just turn the scale to 0. And then on this digital scale, I'm going to adjust the measurement to measure grams. And then the first thing is to measure the tampon while it's dry, so that you have the weight of the tampon itself. And this is saying 3 grams. Now you're going to get your tampon wet and then squeeze it out. You don't want to squeeze it out all the way. You just want to squeeze it out like if it were being held inside your vagina. Okay? So it's going to get held firmly, but it's not going to squeeze it all the way out like you'd squeeze out a rag or a cloth. Okay? And then you're going to weigh it. Okay, this is saying 12 grams. Okay, and we're going to do this 2 more times. This is saying 11 grams. Last time. 12 grams. Okay. So now you're going to get out your calculator and you're going to calculate the 3 different weights that you took and add all 3 weights together. So we're going to start out with 12 grams plus 11 grams plus 12 grams. That equals 35. I'm going to divide that number by 3 to get the average weight of the 3 different tries we did. Divide it by 3. It's giving me 11.667. Okay, so we're going to round that up to 12. So the weight of this tampon is going to be 12 grams total when it's all fully wet. Now, the last thing you want to do, and don't forget this part, is you want to subtract out the weight of the tampon when it's dry. So you want to take off the 3 grams that it weighed when we first weighed it. So 12 minus 3, 11, 10, 9 grams. Okay, so this tampon should absorb about 9 grams. Okay, so as you can see, this tampon would fall into a regular absorbency at 9 grams. So now you know that this size and shape is going to be about the size and shape of a regular tampon, and you can base your patterns off of this. So if you want to get something that's a little bit more of a lighter absorbency, you may want to cut some of this part off here. If you want to get a heavier absorbency, you may want to add a little bit more down here and cut up into it so that it can be folded. Make sure that you test all of your different patterns so that you know what absorbency your patterns are, and from there you can make a pattern, and then you have that pattern and you can cut them as you need. Okay, so now that you know what kind of fabrics to use and how to cut out your tampons and test them for absorbency, you're ready to make your own tampons out of organic cotton. Now, you know exactly what's going into your tampons, and you can also make your own tampons for the right size absorbency. If you want to cut them as you go, if you know that you're going to be bleeding heavy for the next few hours, you can cut out a couple of heavy tampons and keep them with you. You can use these and dispose of them if you want. You can also reuse them and wash them. Just make sure that you either wash them on very high heat or dry them on very high heat after you've rinsed all the blood out. You can rinse blood from a cloth tampon using a bar of soap. You can also store it in a container of water until you're ready to wash it. I just thought I would do a little bit of a folding instructional. I also show you some of the ways that I carry the tampons around. This one here is a light tampon. This is a super tampon. The light tampon, you just fold the string up, roll it sideways. So the tampon string is now here at the top because you folded it back up. You can tug it down. It'll bring the whole thing down when you remove it. If you don't like the string to be this long, you can also roll the string back up into it again and give yourself a little bit of a shorter string. It just depends on how much comfort level you have with pulling them out where the string is. This size one, you're actually gonna fold it up and then fold the tail up before rolling it to the side. Make these ones nice and tight. Okay. And push your string down. Now if the tampon feels a little bit dry when you're trying to insert it, you can put moisten the tip with a little bit of water. You may need to use a lower absorbency tampon. Also be careful if you have really long nails, or if you're trying to reuse a plastic applicator, try not to cut the tissue down there at all while you're inserting your tampon. Also, you can carry these around. This is a wet bag that's got a plastic lining on the inside. Just fabric to wrap them in. So you can wrap it up inside the fabric and roll it. Keep it clean in your purse. You can keep it clean. You could even put it in your wallet if you wanted to.